Okay, so welcome to the Node.js Next 10 meeting for February 19th, 2025. We'll go through our standard approach of looking at the issues that were tagged for the agenda. Before we dive into that, anybody have any announcements they'd like to share? Okay, if not, then let's go to what was tagged. If people can add themselves, I'll put it into the chat. Here's the link to the minutes. If you can add yourself in there, that would be great. Okay. So first one is the Collaborator Summit. That's issue number 326. And so we created that as a tracking issue for the sessions that we should submit as a team. I guess first question is who's going to be able to make the summit and can lead sessions? So I see Jean and Jacob are going to be there. That's good. Unfortunately, I'm not going to make it. Marco's going to be there. So what kind of sessions do we think make sense this time?
This time, do we want to have a
Stand up.
specific
Go ahead.
session? Oh, sorry. Do we want to have a specific session that would be a bit like following what we did in Dublin, really about what are the big pain points for collaborator and what should be a target to work on? We discussed about a few topics. I think that could be a great also way to align everyone on, hey, it could be great if some people want to open first issue or anything about CI about other specific topic, that could be great. And I remember we also discussed something about sharing information about what would be great to be done. We had this discussion in Dublin, but yeah.
Have we made progress on that, or I guess it's like, has anything changed since the last one on that? And so I just like, what would we hope to get out of the discussion? I guess I'm just wondering on that one.
That's a really good point. I'm guessing just trying to have a plan on what we want to do to improve collaborator experience. And we can, for example, already come or asynchronously work on some ID that we could submit to everyone. Doesn't mean that the next 10 will be the one working on that, but at least to drive the discussion on what we want to do is the experience, let's say, on working with a Node.js CI.
I could see like if there's something that like we could generate do in advance beforehand to then drive the discussion, that would make sense to me. I see Jacob has his hand up.
Yeah, I think we could have some follow-ups on things that were raised from last time. Um, Perhaps some stuff about DEI. We've had our first event last week. We'll have another one in a couple weeks, so I think we should have a few under our belt by then. Hopefully, that can lead to something that feeds back into Node. Plus, um, oh my God, if the user land migration thing, like publishing to CodeMod, finally gets sorted, then I can present on that as well. We have another contributor who will, like, who's working on a second user land migration. So that is trucking along, and we can talk about that.
Sounds good. Marco, you have your hand up?
Yeah, so I was thinking since that we usually do the next 10 survey around April, and this time the Collab Summit is before the survey, we could create a small session to gather ideas and feedback for the survey. So like people want to improve, like get more like questions. Since the thing that happened last year is that on some questions we copied from the previous one and they were outdated. So this would give a chance to like collaborators to review the survey, like contribute and make it easier for us too.
I think Jean was like, my understanding is the effort was to try and do it before the Collaborator Summit. But that's a good point. If we're not, then like having a session to work on it makes a lot of sense. So I don't know, Jean, your take on like, should we maybe defer it till after, or, go ahead.
To be honest, both are okay. I opened a few pull requests, or technically two pull requests. One with a list. I completely forgot to open the issue, so I just opened the issue, and that's why it's not tagged, because I did that today. So there is a first part and list of questions on what we want, depending on, let's say, the time. The survey can be before the event, after the event. We can review the question on the event. To be honest, I don't have a really strong feeling on one or the other one. Both are good.
Yeah, so my point is that discussing it at the summit would remove a lot of the pain that we have from the collaboration on the survey itself, because last year a lot of people came, dropped a comment, no, I think this should be done this way without elaborate. So it was a bit like frustrating. But doing it synchronously at the summit would remove this problem completely.
Yeah, like so if we think as if we think as a group that like, yeah, it's better to actually get that input at the summit, then I'd say let's defer, right? Like otherwise we've got 6 weeks. So like in the 6 weeks that's left, I think roughly it might be 7, but like we'd have to like finalize the questions, run the survey, get all the data together. So, the question is whether that's enough time. So I don't know. Yeah, if everybody thinks like, hey, let's defer and have that discussion, the survey, that sounds like a good plan too. I guess I'll throw out does anybody object to doing that? Because I think like Marco's saying like would be a good idea. Doesn't seem like a bad idea to me. So like, does anybody have concerns about delaying it till after and doing it that way? Okay, so I'll say we agreed to do survey after Collaborator Summit and plan for session to discuss. Okay, I guess, do we have volunteer to propose, like create and submit the sessions? Like Marco, do you want to volunteer to that session, or?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay. Okay, so let me just see that. So Marco will submit session. I think Jacob, you had a few there. It sounds like you volunteer, like the DEI one, and I think mentoring. You've had some ideas on mentoring and stuff. So like a session on, that and discussing ideas and what might work and things like.
Mhm.
Does that make sense for you to submit one on that?
Yes. Where should I put like yeah, post the proposal for um the mentorship program?
Like you mean like an outline that says like, hey, here's what it would look like, or or the outline for the session itself?
The former. I guess I could put the former in the latter.
Well, a reference to it makes sense. So I think I understand what you're saying is like, hey, I would almost like if the end goal is to have a documented program,
Hmm.
like a PR, there's like under the node, like there's Node.js node doc collaborators. I think let me just here, I'll find the actual link. Node and then sorry, doc contributing.
Hmm.
Like a doc in there, which would be like mentorship program or something like, because in there, that's where we have the collaborator guide, right? So if people are going to look for that, that kind of thing, like in the end, we've often say discuss things in next 10 and we've had documents in the next 10 repo. like the technical values, right? But
Mhm.
in the end, I think having it actually landed in that contributing place would be my first take of a good place for it.
I was thinking that that would be the final place for it.
Sure,
That we
right.
would
That
want to
right.
have. Yeah, yeah. But I was thinking that we would have, I don't know, somewhere with proposals. And then after the proposal has been sort of hashed out, and it's more or less ready to go, then we open a pull request to submit it to that.
In that case, I would just like find a directory and like if you'd like the next 10 group to work on that
Mhm.
proposal, just find a directory like we could if there is, let me take a look at what's already there. Next
There's
10.
like three. There's like meetings,
Yeah,
collab
you
summit.
could just create a directory called proposals,
Okay, cool.
right? Like that, unless anybody else has a better idea, right? Like it seems like a good place to me.
Perfect.
Okay, sounds good. Okay, so but you'll submit a session on on sort of like maybe mentoring and DEI. Like I think if you could combine like those two, or is it something, or do you think
I think
separate
they're
sessions?
different. I think they're different. Like the DEI one, I think could be if we just want to give a status update, I think that could be fairly brief. And then the mentoring thing, like the DEI one, I think could be if it's a status update, like I don't know, 5 minute announcement kind of thing. And then the DEI thing, sorry, the mentoring thing could be, I don't know, anywhere like 20 minutes or something.
Okay, so yeah, it's depends on the like. I think just so long as like in the submission, definitely say like, hey, this is only 5 minutes. Because I think in the end, sometimes we've had questions in the past where it's like, hey, could you combine a few of these? There's a whole bunch of
Hmm.
sessions from next 10. So like that's kind of where the and similarly, like the code mod stuff, like if you think that's a short one, like it might even make sense to propose something which is like an updates session where like people
Oh,
can
yeah,
give
that'd be
those
good.
5 minutes, like, hey, if there's going to be a bunch of different ones, like it's like, hey, let's have a session which is updates on things. Everybody gets 5 minutes, and here's the ones that you've already got. Then like you could ask, we could find other people because that would be kind of a different, maybe lower effort, lower bar thing for people to propose into, right?
Yeah, I think that's a really good idea.
Okay. Okay, so you'll put together a few things there, and then John, like in terms of the pain points for collaborators, if you want to, sounds like you could propose something like that.
Yep.
Okay. Um, I wonder, like, I guess we don't know if the ambassadors are going to make it to the collaborator summit or not, but that maybe we should talk to them offline about that. Any other topics or sessions?
Not really a session, but do we want to use a collaborator summit if we want to work on the discover your collaborator or something like with a card or anything else? Do we want to use that as a way to get interview or have some specific information about specific collaborator or stuff like that? Not really a session, but most a side session, I guess, or something.
Although it could be like I don't know, like that's basically promotion of collaborators, right? Like, would it be good? You could submit a session that says, like, we want to do more promotion of collaborators. Here's some of the ideas. Other people might have other ideas, or if it's like, and drive into that one in particular. In terms of the cost and budget, how that works is like, I mean, today we don't have really budget funds. Well, I shouldn't say that. We have some, so some money has been
Mhm.
coming in through the sponsorship platforms we've already turned on, but it's not a huge amount. Um, we do have a Linux Foundation crowdfunding account, but that's really dedicated to security stuff.
Mhm.
Um, So today, a long way of saying today, we would like ask the OpenJS Foundation for some dollars. So it really, I think, comes down to like, well, how many dollars are we asking for, right? Like if we're asking for 100,000, that's way different than if we're asking for 1,000, right?
Oh, I
Um,
think probably much less than that. Probably
right,
petty cash, like I don't know, $50 or something less.
right. So that's for the like the collaborator Pokemon cards or something else.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Right. So that one I would be tempted to say, like, if I look at
Oh, yeah.
the
On my side, the main idea was to have like book a session, but that would be a side session, not in the main room or anything else, but just to say to data like, hey, can we use one of your room for one afternoon? And we'll do, I don't know, 10 people will do a 3 minute, 5 minute presentation, and that's all.
makes sense. So I'm just looking at JS sponsor dashboard. Sorry, I'm gonna have to. Oops. Yeah, it'll be interesting. So, like, anyway, for $50, it would be like, can we possibly use our? Although that one, I've been asking the JS, we should probably just ask them because we haven't quite got them figured out, getting the money into the account and stuff like that.
Okay.
So yeah, so if you have an ask, I can maybe try and help. But you know, it would be going to Ben and Robin. I guess probably we would need to like go to the open something in the TSC repo to say like, hey, we'd like to spend the money because like all the governance says, hey, we're the the TSC will decide how to fund these things, and so I think having the TSC ask makes sense.
Okay, cool.
Okay, anything else? Any other topics, brainstormed ideas? In terms of sessions, I mean that the number of sessions we've talked about there is probably already as many as we would get from the next 10 versus other things, unless we come up with some other brilliant ideas. Okay, well, if not that, I think that's great. And of course, if there are any more, that would be good. Let me just, I'm going to take all those and I'm going to put it into the issue itself so that we've actually recorded some of the stuff, not just in the minutes, but in the session. So when we come back to next time.
Maybe in the meantime, Duke.
What was that?
Just Duke raising his hand.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Luke. Or Duke, sorry.
Oh yeah. Uh, I I wonder. We do have a sessions for like coding tutorial, right? Maybe we could add some advanced stuff like uh like from 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 robust based code in from that workflow into the technical details in C++ implementation. I um will will that work?
In terms of the sessions, there's all sorts of different like topics and stuff like that. So you're free to open up like um something like whatever topic. So that you were talking about like how to get more into the details of the C++ implementation or
Yes. Yes.
and looking for help or looking to lead people through a particular topic.
Yeah. Actually, lead people from JavaScript code into how the C++ code execute the JavaScript.
Right. Now, is that something like you were volunteering to lead the session?
No, I'm suggesting a session because that's mm, where I'm also struggling to understand in JavaScript.
Right. I
Yeah.
think like so what we'll need is we'll need somebody who volunteers to lead the session. So I think like you can open up a suggestion in the like in the Summit repo, that says like, hey, it would be great to have a session like this and then describe what you're talking about. But
Yeah.
like that'll rely on somebody from the project saying like, hey, yeah, I can lead that one versus
Oh,
unless
yeah.
somebody in the group here says, yeah, hey, I'll do that. That's probably the best bet.
I see. Thank you.
I mean, it kind of maybe relates, Jacob, to the mentorship side of things, like the different areas of mentorship and so forth. But
Yes. Yeah, actually that would work perfectly. Except we first need to figure out like who the mentors are.
yeah, like I think I should have been a bit more clear. Like I think it kind of relates to the like it might be a topic, but covering a session, doing a session like that, I don't think would be covered in what you're going to submit, right? Like, but it would be related to saying like, could we end up doing something like that in terms of the mentorship thing? So you know what I mean? Like there's different
Yeah,
areas where people are going to need mentorship, and I can see like that's one of the more challenging areas, right?
that's definitely true. Um, yeah, it could be a one-on-one type thing, or if there is enough interest, then we could turn it into like a group thing. But we'd need to know like who's going to be there and that sort of thing.
Yeah. So I pasted to Duck into the chat there the link to the summit. So like that's where you could create an issue and say like, hey, it would be really great if there was a session where, somebody would lead us through blah, 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 which is like, okay, how do I actually make the transition between the C++ and the JavaScript code? And, maybe one of the people there will be like, yeah, I know that inside and out. I'm happy to like go through with it with you. Or maybe it's like, hey, no, a bunch of people, so we'll be interested and we can find a slot or something like that.
Thank you.
And I think because like I don't see too many submissions there yet, but like that will be where they start to fill up in terms of like the submissions that take place. Okay, so that's good. I pasted that. Let me just double check so I didn't distract myself. And yeah, I pasted the things in there. So that was good coverage of that topic. The ambassador program, I think we've got our initial ambassadors. They did provide an update that said they met and they're thinking on a few different things. I think this one was open because we were like still adding some message and topics. I guess the question is, have we kind of finished with that for now, or do we still need this on the agenda as a reminder?
So I pinged collaborators for on this, but I
Yep.
don't think anybody has
Okay.
PR'd into the ambassador program. So maybe it's not clear, or maybe there is no interest from collaborators. I'm not sure. So yeah.
Yeah, it's like that could almost be a session itself as well at the summit. Like, what topics do we want to messages or do we want to get out? Or I don't know. I think it's one of those ones where we have a challenge getting broader engagement in some of those discussions.
We can probably merge it with the survey thing. We could say, hey, like we are having the survey. We need to figure out what the thing that we want to ask
Right.
to like users, and also the things that as a project we want to people like we want the user know about. So it's a bit of.
I think that's a good idea. Like, yeah, that because in terms of the survey, yeah, if you get like an hour slot, I think you could easily cover those two. So, okay, that sounds like a plan. So we'll leave it on the agenda as that, and like that'll be the next sort of thing that trying to do to get that. At some point we can declare, well, our current messages are done, but I think that's a good step to take before we do that. The perf and diagnostics, I don't think we have any update on that. The corporate usage stories, studies, I don't know if there's any, I don't have any update on that one.
I don't remember when or to what we were stuck. I remember we had multiple discussion on trying to have something. Was it discussing with Kelly or some other people from the OpenJS Foundation to see how we can do that? I don't remember.
I think it's more that we need a proposal for how we're going to make that work written down, and just like that's not necessarily popped to the top of our list. We were looking at the ambassador program and supporting that. So like if somebody wanted to write a proposal in our new proposals directory, that would be a next step for sure, right? Like I think because I personally don't see it as something where we ask the foundation to do it. We want to make it as low overhead, enable people to opt in without requiring the project to do a bunch of work, right?
Yep, I can work on that.
Okay. Yeah, it's kind of like if there's some way to say like, hey, you could, I think you were saying like if we had a repo and people could PR in their story, and then we end up publishing and promoting them once a month in some way, that would be great.
Yep.
And,
Okay.
and we should talk to the foundation as well about it. It's just I think the less we depend on them, spending significant time, the better kind of thing.
Yep. So I will open a PR.
Okay.
In the next 10, then we can work from that.
Yeah, okay. Sounds perfect. We'll put a PR to start. Sounds good. And there were a couple of issues open that didn't get tagged, so I'm just going to go look at those because I think we've got a little bit of time.
Yeah, it was 2 issues on my side. One with some default question from the survey, some change from the previous one. The main question was on a few questions, there was a really, really low engagement, especially most of the question that was open question. And I think that you outlined that last or 2 weeks ago. On some question on 2,800 people got only like 400 answers or something like that. Do we want to keep them? And that's the main question, but we can have the discussion also asynchronous. I think, yeah. So let's kill them. And the main point was that what do we want to keep for the sake of keeping the question or remove what is really low percentage? For example, on some question on which architecture people were using, some of them were below 1%. Do we want to keep them just to keep them?
I think we need to refactor the whole thing. Like not the whole thing, but we should remove open open answer because people don't want to, like nobody's going to write, nobody's going to answer, and we should be I think there is one meeting where we discussed about the things that we failed in the survey, so we should be able to get the meeting notes and review them.
Yeah, and I don't know, Zach, if you want to share a little bit of having looked at it, do you have any thoughts that you think you want to highlight for the rest of us as that happens?
Like in terms of content to include on the
just
next
in general on the questions, right? Like you did some analysis and if there were like your top 3 things that would improve the survey for the next time.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Just to put you on the spot, sorry, but
no, it's fine. It's actually still kind of fresh in my mind. I posted in one of the issues in the GitHub a couple weeks ago. Just I highlighted my findings, but just in a nutshell, yeah, I think closing off or removing the open response items will help in the future iteration of the survey. Any questions that could be added, just gauging user Node.js user proficiency, like asking what their preferred programming languages are, and then providing a specified list and not making it open response, or just asking the survey taker like what their native spoken language is. That would be really useful for just tracing just uptake of experimental features, stable features, because as I was able to sort of find relationships between like country where they lived, continent where the user lived, and just a general like preference or just pattern for different features that were used. So I don't know if we had more information about just other demographic characteristics like that. Might be interesting in just exploring just uptake of specific new features that roll out.
Does the like I'm trying to think what we would action based on those, but I like based on that suggestion, I'm wondering like even asking, would it make sense to ask the people's proficiency in language? So like whether it's your native language or not is one interesting thing.
Mhm.
The other might be like if it's not my native language, but I'm perfectly comfortable in English, that's quite different than it's not my native language and I barely speak it, right? Like, so I don't know, but I'm also then thinking, well, like, okay, what would we do with that info, right?
Yeah, I mean, like it would tell you like maybe point to some of the reason why some features, like there may be some barriers behind some features, but like just in terms of like specific decision making, I don't think like language, like queries about language preference or like spoken language will provide like a direct like correlation.
Right. But I wonder if like instead of native language, would it make sense to ask how comfortable you are in English?
Yeah, both like strength, fluency. Yeah, because it's only it only answers part of the question. If they say they speak a language or not, you don't know how well.
I also wanted to ask about like the open questions. There's at least a couple I thought like the ones on like what were your major pain points and um I think we had one around the ESM. Like some of those I don't know that we could have a closed question. Like they're a bunch of work to go through, but I think like on the pain points, it was interesting to see what people said on that. And I don't know how do we
Yeah, I think the last survey question for the 2024 survey would be worth keeping in. It is open response, but it is specifically asking like biggest, I forget exactly how it was phrased. It's like it was biggest challenges or biggest issues that you face using Node.js. I mean, it's open response, but just there will be a like not as many people will answer for that reason, but it makes it more manageable just in terms of just the qualitative analysis you can do on it. And I did find some, yeah, during the last call a couple weeks ago, I did walk through a couple of the recurring themes that I found. And I mean, just I mentioned TypeScript, built-in TypeScript support, and a couple other things, and they were things that have already been incorporated into Node.js since then. So it'd be useful to track what takes their place for 2025.
Yeah, and making sure they don't show up again, still show up, but yeah, no, it makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, so like a few open questions like that still makes sense, but yeah, the earlier ones, the more we can close them off, the better. So I guess like those issues are open since we've agreed to sort of defer it until after the collaborator summit. It's probably not as urgent to go through. I was thinking like, if we only had 6 weeks, we should probably have spent some time going through and like refining them into something closer to be ready to send it out. Oh yeah, sorry. And actually,
I would say that like we should start working on them. So when we go to the summit, we go with like an idea of like new structures, and like at the summit we discuss like more about details and stuff. But we should not go there totally unprepared.
unfortunately, I have to drop off. I meant to actually drop off at the half hour. Sorry about that. But I'll make Marco, I'll make you I'll just pick somebody, make them the chair so you can continue to continue there.
Is there anything else in the agenda? Or
That could be the end, but I'm just going to make you the host and I'll
okay.
drop off. You can figure that out. Sorry.
Okay.
Okay.
No
Bye.
problem. Bye. Okay. Yeah, I think we should like start to create an outline of what the survey looks like, and we should do it internally and not publicize it, because as like the moment that we allow open collaboration, it becomes a nightmare. And then we do that at the summit. We do the open collaboration part of the summit, we refine it, and then we ship it probably for end of April, May.
What platform is used to distribute the survey?
Monkey Survey, I think.
Okay, that's what I thought.
Survey Monkey, something like that.
Survey Monkey, I think it is.
All right. Is there anything else we want to discuss today? If not, I will give you some of your time back, and we will meet in 2 weeks. All right.
Okay.
Bye-bye. Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Ciao.